guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Neighbors Stole My Identity While I Was Absent to Trespass and Alter My Property. Summary. In this story, Op has neighbors from hell that hate the color of his house. They constantly make comments about the color and how ugly it is, and even go as far as impersonating Op and his wife in order to get a painting company to repaint the house. Op takes them to court and wins for false impersonation and property damage. To add salt to the wound, Op then repaints his house the same yellow color, as well as painting patio furniture the same and getting yellow lawn decorations. I think it's reasonable to be excited to go on a vacation after working tirelessly for months on end. I think it's even more reasonable to enjoy your vacation and the memories you made while on vacation. Hell, it is even reasonable to be excited to come home and sleep in your own bed. Except that the last time I was on vacation, and I came home, my neighbors had illegally painted my entire house. And no, I am not lying. I hope you have some time to sit back and relax, because boy do I have a story for you today. So, let us start off with some background information that is vital to the story. I have lived in my neighborhood for quite some time now with my wife. The house we bought and live in was painted yellow when we bought it, and the color never really bothered us, so we just kept it. We did live in a pretty warm climate and most of the houses had some sort of bright color to them. Ours was just bright yellow. I never thought that it would be a reason for a neighborhood feud. So, flash forward to several years after moving into our house, another newlywed couple moves in right next door to us. Right from the start, they seemed like entitled snobs who were not afraid to let their inner Karen out. The first couple of days after meeting them, they started making snide comments about the color of our house. I thought that it was weird a color of the house would bother them so much, but boy, was I about to learn that their snarky remarks were just the beginning. Shortly after the passive-aggressive comments about the color of my house, they just started straight up asking and demanding that we repaint the house. The wife had even told my wife that they did not want to live next to a house that was as yellow as piss. Well, why did you move in next to us then? I would like to take this time to defend the color of my house. It was not pea-colored. It was yellow like a cartoon sun. Okay, now that that is out of the way. So, flash forward to a couple of more weeks, things get even weirder. Over the course of the next few weeks, they did everything in their power to try and get us to repaint our house. They tried forming an HOA in hopes that they could enforce standards such as everyone having the same colored house and then we would have to paint our house. Everyone in the neighborhood disagreed with them, and this even furthered the feud because all of the other neighbors were starting to really hate them. At one point, they had even called 911. What the duck? I cannot even imagine their thought process. Did they also call 911 when they wanted to complain about local restaurants or shops? I mean, seriously. Obviously, the police could not charge us with anything. The police told them to go pound sand. When you have annoyed and pissed off even your local police department, it is time to rethink your life choices. Anyways, things had been quiet from them for several weeks after this. We had thought maybe since they could not get the police to do anything, they had finally given up. We learned that was false hope. See, during this time, my wife and I had gone on vacation. My wife and I were gone for about a week, and during the time we were gone, our neighbors took advantage of our absence and impersonated us so that they could have our house repainted. Yes, you read that right. My neighbors impersonated us and convinced a painting company that they were us, so they could paint our house a color of their liking. We were coming back from vacation and when we came home, our house was painted this ugly and dull gray color. It did not even match with the rest of the neighborhood. We had almost missed it because we were so used to that yellow color popping right out. I was furious. I already knew that this was our neighbors, but upon further investigation I was able to prove that it was our neighbors. Our neighbor across the street who had been collecting our mail had tried taking pictures of a painting company while we were gone, but the signal was not extraordinarily strong where we were, so we never got them. Another neighbor also made a statement that said she witnessed the couple standing on the sidewalk, talking with the painters. I mean, how crazy do you have to be, seriously? I tried knocking on their door, more like pounding, to be honest. but just like magic, they had conveniently disappeared. So, my wife and I decided to take them to court. Upon even further investigation, our neighbors had told the painting company that they were going on vacation and thought this was the perfect time to paint their house since they would not be home. The painters believed them because our neighbors showed them pictures of our house from the street and sidewalk. Unfortunately, we could not get them for trespassing. Based off of photos from our neighbors and the photos they gave the painters, they never stepped foot on our property. The painters could not be charged either, because they had permission from what they thought were the owners. Not that I was really mad at the painters anyways, they were just trying to do a job. However, we were able to successfully charge them and win with false impersonation for pretending to be us, and also property damage. I was hoping that they would move out after this, but props to them for having more balls than I thought and staying in the neighborhood. And in order to get even more revenge, I used the lawsuit money to repaint our house back to the yellow color. I also spray painted my patio furniture the same color. Oh, and my window frames. Oh, and I also got some bright yellow as dollar lawn flamingos too. The neighbors do not talk to us or acknowledge us at all anymore. The next story is titled, Aunt's family wants to use my parents' address for a low-income housing application. My dad's siblings and their families immigrated to the US 4 to 5 years ago. My dad applied for them and paid all the associated fees related to the application. Once they got here, he helped them find housing, find jobs and get into schools for the school-age kids. Despite doing all of that, his siblings basically acted as if he didn't do shit for them. Not only that, they kissed up to my dad's younger brother who was already in the United States. They thought they didn't need my dad's help and the younger brother would help them. The younger brother ended up screwing a few of them over, which is decent story itself. About 3 weeks ago, one of my aunts and her oldest son, Kay, asked my parents to use their address as part of their application for low-income housing in the city my parents live. My dad said they can use the address, but he won't be putting their names on any sort of utilities. Aunt and Kay said my parents should help family. My dad told them he had done enough for them already. Aunt and Kay came over again earlier this week. This time, they brought a housing application where they wanted my dad to say he was my aunt's landlord. Kay told my dad to just sign, and he would fill out the rest. How nice of him. My dad once again said no. My mom asked Kay why they are applying for low-income housing instead of buying a home. They have enough money for a down payment, based on their own talk. Kay is an engineer and 2 other people in the family work, so they have a decent enough combined income. Kay said he doesn't want to because he would have to get a loan and pay interest, which is against Islam. This is true, but my mom pointed out how Kay and my aunt were lying, which is also not something a good Muslim would do. Not only are they trying to lie about where they live, but they are also lying about their situation. The application will have just my aunt, her husband and one of her daughters. However, Kay would live there too and he makes enough to disqualify them. Aunt and Kay ended up leaving with Kay apparently telling my parents to just rip up the application since they won't help family. As usual, my dad's side of the family only thinks about themselves and have a short-term memory on the time and money we have already spent on them. Update. Original post was about my aunt and her family applying for low-income housing in a city they don't live in, work in and for which they don't qualify for on an income basis. They wanted my parents to sign off as a landlord to say they lived at his place and paid rent since my parents' home is in the city where they were applying to live. They were also applying without their son included who will live with them, but including him would disqualify them for income. My parents said no several times to my aunt's family, but they continued to stop by without invitation and continuously call. My mom joked that they had seen and spoken to them more in the past 2 months than the 2 years prior. My dad ended up giving the housing office a call to let them know that he has not given permission for his address to be used in any application. Relatives had used my parents' address without permission. He didn't sign anything, but they still put his address as their mailing address, so he wasn't letting that happen again. Spoke to my mom over the phone yesterday and she told me the aunt's family is now pissed. Apparently, their application has been cancelled. Housing office told them they received a notification that the address used was not correct. Oh well. My parents have done more than enough for these ungrateful and greedy people. The next story is entitled Landlady Breaks Into My House and Gets Me Swatted. This happened over the span of December 2020 to mid-June 2021. I was renting an apartment in a low-income neighborhood when a new property manager was hired. The first day I met her she tried to ban me from having guests in my house and told me every guest in my house was hereby trespassed from the property. My guests were friends of mine who were current residents of the complex. I told her to never contact me again and to only contact me through my lawyer and slammed the door in her face. About a month later I caught her on film breaking into my house and she repeatedly refused to leave, stating that because she's the landlady she has the right to be in my house whenever she wants for as long as she wants. I again told her to leave and warned her this was her last warning and took a step closer to her which made her leave. She proceeded to call the cops on me for threatening her. I showed them the video and that was that. She took me to eviction court and lied to the judge, stating that I stabbed another resident when in fact the other resident stabbed me. She also sued for destruction of property. When the judge asked her what property I destroyed, she launched into a long and false story about how I flipped my furniture in my house. Yes, she actually tried to sue me for supposedly destroying my own property. Fast forward a couple of months and I caught her opening my door without warning. I stood in the doorway and asked her, "Can I help you?" She told me that my water heater was leaking and maintenance needed to come in and fix it. I told her, "He can come in but you need to get the duck out." She stormed in anyway and in retaliation called the sheriff's department and lied to them, saying that I was heavily armed, and threatened her, which resulted in me getting swatted. I ended up moving out because of this, but she got fired a few months later when my friends sued her for illegally withholding their security deposit, framing them for damages to their apartment that she caused, harassment, and a few other things. Last I heard, she was actively being investigated for her illegal activity. The last story is titled, "My entitled neighbor tries to shame me into taking home a young homeless man. She'd do it but she has to protect her daughters. Apparently I'm not worth protecting. This happened a few years ago but still makes me ultra upset when I think about it. I also feel it's important to state that I was sexually abused as a kid and raped many times as a teen, and that my neighbor is full on aware of it, and that I have a hard time standing up for myself, enforcing my boundaries. My neighbor and I used to volunteer together at a homeless youth drop center. I volunteered there first and made the awful mistake of inviting her. On a cold winter day in January, we had a new homeless kid come in for our drop-in services. He was 22, very tall and lean, wearing expensive-looking clothes and a ton of jewelry. He also had a MacBook. We've never had a kid come in with such nice things, so it was very unusual. He stated that he had somewhere to stay, but they'd only let him stay 3 days of the week, so the rest of the week he had to stay outside. My neighbor took a strong liking to him immediately and told me that I should take him home with me. She said she'd do it, but she has all those girls to protect at home. She has 6 adopted daughters, all in their 20s. I'm also in my 20s and own my own home across the street from her with my husband and our 3 cats. My husband was deployed at the time though. I told her that I wouldn't feel safe. She told me to lock myself in my bedroom. I'm supposed to give a man I don't know free range of my house and rely on a flimsy bedroom door lock to keep me safe? That made me feel so worthless and bad about myself that her daughters are worth protecting but I'm not. She kept trying to shame me into taking him home, saying, "Oh, what if he gets robbed? He has lots of nice things. You have spare bedrooms in your house. Why can't you give him one?" Again, I told her I wouldn't feel safe. She just goes on and on about how it's so cold and I can just lock myself in my bedroom. She'd totally take him in, but she has her daughters to protect. Well, who's gonna protect me? So, I told her I don't think my deployed husband would like it if I took him home. She tells me not to tell him. Oh, that'll be great if something does happen. Oh, hi honey. I took in a homeless man and locked myself in our room to stay safe, and he totally robbed us, so that's why your PlayStation is missing. Or maybe I'd get raped again and get the pleasure of explaining to the police that I took a homeless man I just met into my home and got raped. Not good enough reason. Flimsy door lock is gonna keep me safe, and I apparently owe him the benefit of a doubt instead of myself being able to be safe in my own home. So, I tell her it's against the non-profit's rules to even let the homeless know where we live, let alone take them home with us. I'd get banned if I took him home. She told me not to tell them and they wouldn't know. Who's gonna tell them? She says. When it was time to leave, she starts up again how it's a shame I have spare bedrooms in my house and can't let him have one. As if I could just hand him one and it wouldn't be in my house. I again state that I wouldn't feel safe. He could rape, rob, or murder me or kill one of my pets. We just met him. Ain't no telling what he's capable of or might do. She badgered me the whole ride home too. just going on and on about how I should have blessed him with somewhere to stay. When we got home, she tells me it's not too late to go look for him. She knows where a lot of homeless like to sleep and we could go back and search for him. I again tell her I wouldn't feel safe, my husband would be upset and it's against the rules. She tells me well she just hopes nothing happens to him, especially since I could have given him my spare room. I walked away feeling so awful about myself. The whole thing made me feel worthless. Especially since she knows my history and would suggest such a thing in the first place. The fact alone that she stated she couldn't take him home because she has to protect her daughters, but I should take him in? That was so devastating to me. That I'm not as worthy of being protected, safe in my own home as her daughters are. I used to be so shy and humble back then. Just thinking about it now makes me want to scream at her to duck off. If me locking myself in my bedroom is good enough for me, then it should be good enough for her to take him home and have her daughters lock themselves in their ducking rooms. At least if something happens, they can scream for help. I'm home alone and I doubt anyone would hear me. You want him out of the cold, then you take him home with you. Your daughter's safety shouldn't be any more important than mine. I've been needing to vent this off badly for such a long time. Thank you to anyone that read the whole thing. Thank you for listening.